Hey, welcome Lourdes, Paul, and Tristan. Good to see all three of you. We got a 75% attendance. I hope you're enjoying the course. We're in week 3. Let's go to the polls. See, that's your cue, Joseph. I say go to the polls. You're supposed to bring it up. There we go. What is your initial impression of a loan to Jeff Wong to acquire Gray's Dry Cleaning? Possibly. Yeah, I'm 50-50. I don't think I want to do it. I've already turned this down and moved on to something else. Curious to see what your reaction is. They have 100% have voted, Joseph. So all three of you say, okay, possibly. Yeah, that's appropriate. That's appropriate. I'll talk a little bit more about the case study. It's messy on purpose because all of your loans tend to be a little messy. When we play in the SBA sandbox, there are issues why we are looking at it as an SBA loan. Very good. All three of you got it right. Net profit is not the same as cash flow. I talk about that the CPA has a different agenda than we do. Introduce you to Gray's. Yeah, and again, I did this for the underwriters, so I hope it's not too complicated. I hope you're enjoying it. When I did the underwriting course, initially it was 8 weeks, and I added week 3 and 4 because in the underwriting course there were quite a few novice lenders who did not have generic financial statement accounting 101. That's why I added this. So I thought hopefully it would be useful for you as well. And let's go to email questions. This came from, I believe it was Paul. And you mentioned the credit card expense that was left out in the financials, but I'm a little confused. Okay, there's 2 parts of this. When I'm talking about credit card expense, it needs to be, you need to understand what's happening. What a lot of small businesses will do will enter the net receipts from the credit card company. That 3%, it disappears into the void. In other words, I process credit cards, and when I get from PayPal, I get my reporting, my receipts as the net proceeds, and they keep their 2.5% fee. That's fine, but what I do is I gross it up. I want to show my gross sales, and then I have a line item for credit card expense. So if you're dealing with an unsophisticated business, i.e. a dry cleaners, and they're taking credit card expense, it's probably the net receipts that they get from the credit card processor. That's all that I'm saying on that. So if you do not see a line item for interest for credit card expense, that's what it is. So just ask that question. This is, again, for more Main Street liquor stores, a little bit more unsophisticated. But understand that expense is there and how it's accounted for. Now, this one was the trick, and I'm a little confused. There's long-term debt, but there's no interest expense. And I did this on purpose because I wanted you to understand that in this case, the debt is an auto loan, but what he does, he writes off the whole payment as an auto expense. He doesn't do it. And he writes off the whole principal and interest, and which is common for the type of clients at this level that you are dealing with. So that was my little trick, which the underwriting class did not catch it. So good job. Question number 2. It is very complicated. It's about cash flow, and it's about affiliation. Now, first of all, came across my desk this morning. SBA is proposing new affiliation rules that will make life simple. Currently, there's a control issue. But SBA is saying, as long as you are not a majority shareholder, we're going to assume you don't have control, which will make your jobs as BDOs a lot easier. They're also coming out with new franchise rules, so instead of worrying about if a franchise is eligible, they're going to say, Jiffy Lube. It's eligible, it's not eligible. But currently, we're under these old rules. Here's the answer in this global cash flow. The company, the small business applicant, has to stand on their own. The cash flow has to be, it's over $350,000, has to be a 1.15 discretionary service coverage ratio. It has to do that. What I do when we talk about Franklin Brothers, which I believe we introduced this week, don't we, Joseph? Yeah, we'll talk about Franklin Brothers. When we talk about global cash flow, we're taking all of the cash from affiliates and from guarantors. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. The easy answer is do what you do for your conventional loans. If we're going to do a conventional loan and we're simply going to look at global cash flow and we're going to say, hey, all the affiliates and guarantors, it doesn't impact my loan, then you can do that for SBA. SBA doesn't mandate a global cash flow debt service coverage ratio. All that we want to know, we just want to address, do the affiliates, do the guarantors, are they creating additional cash that they don't have to suck out of the company, or are they in a negative situation and they have to loot from the company? And all you want to answer is, based on the guarantors, and we'll get into Michael Franklin, we're going to see he generates additional cash based on his investments. That's all we want to answer. I don't have an affiliated company. One of my things I've mentioned frequently is be aware of complexity. If you have 4 or 5 companies and there's a bunch of note receivables, note payables, and they're, why are we doing that? Well, they're doing it to hide something. And if there's cash, there's cash. And if there's cash, as I hope you were all on the webinar when I presented my loan as a junior lending officer to the senior manager, and I had all my nice ratios and I proved the company cash flow. He said, "Where's the cash?" No, we're not going to do this loan. Where's the cash? So the answer is you're not going to take outside cash and put it in the cash flow analysis for that company. The company has to stand on its own. You cannot say the company's underwater, but because of this affiliate operation, we can give them credit for that to make them positive cash flow. Can't do that. It has to stand on its own. Number 3. Oh, there's my response. I think I said it much better in writing than I did verbally. It sounds like underwriting SBA loans have similar characteristics to conventional underwriting, but are not the same. True. Some portion of SBA underwriting was foreign and strikingly different, especially regarding capital expenditure. In our example, the $100,000 leasehold improvements, debt consolidation. Actually, I disagree with the question that your underwriting should be the same. Underwriting for conventional loans is the same as SBA. A good conventional underwriter must account for future capital expenditures. They must account for those leasehold improvements. So I would disagree. I would disagree with this. Now, SBA mandates those items, but your conventional underwriters should be doing the same thing. Are taxes always considered as a debt service? It depends on the calculation. If you go net profit after tax, we don't worry about taxes. If you go EBITDA, earnings before taxes, then you have to do the tax in. So it depends on how you account for it. Do the same as your regular conventional loans. I hope I didn't insult the person, but conventional underwriting, look, small business lending is small business lending. And I don't care if you're an online lender, if it's a conventional loan, if it's an SBA loan, the same elements apply. Characters the first C, it's got a cash flow. Cash flow calculation should be absolutely the same between a conventional loan and an SBA loan. Do we have one more, Joseph? Love the questions. Oh, this is a great question. We calculate owner's draw $30,000. Gray, minimalist, lives upstairs, doesn't need a lot. He can live on $30,000. I forget if we assume he gets a little Social Security, has a little savings. But this is a great question. A future buyer of this business may require a much lower or higher dollar amount. Absolutely. And that's part of the case study. You have to plug the number in. The proposed owner, Jeff, I believe his personal tax return shows $17,000 earnings. I did that on purpose. He was working at a dry cleaner, so we wanted him to do that. So he may need a little bit less. Now remember that $30,000. Where's Jeff going to live? Is he going to live upstairs, or is he going to live somewhere else? I think we decided he's going to have to live somewhere else. So that's part of the fun of the case. Yes, I purposely made profits declining. This is a messy case. It's not. This is a real life case. This is what you see out in the marketplace. The underwriter is the final arbiter of what that number is, what's prudent. If the person's living in Beverly Hills and driving a Mercedes, $30,000 isn't going to cut it. If they're living with a roommate, and we said this was a gentrification area, if they're living downtown, then that may work. On another note, do you know any app that can do computations from global income tax returns, various in order to underwrite a file? The answer is no. We've played around with that. The best thing to do is create your own Excel spreadsheet, talk to your underwriters. I've toyed with the idea of doing a product. Everyone I talk to has their own different adjustment. I would do a very simple spreadsheet. Talk to your underwriters. They may have something there. But I tell you, I will look around. Let me see if I can find something for that. See if I can deliver on that. Do we have one more question, Joseph? Oh, my book. Thank you. I finished your book. Great read. My only disagreement with its contents is choice of faction in your acknowledgement section. I used to play World of Warcraft, and I was horrid. I'm sure for the three of you, you're shaking your head. You have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's perfectly fine. Week 4, we get into Franklin Brothers, a little bit more complicated loan. The takeaway on this is the loan as presented doesn't work. And this is a great case study for the business development officer. The business development officer goes off and says, hey, they want to buy a building, and they throw it on the underwriter's desk. Don't do that. After this course, you're going to be smart. The loan does not cash flow just by buying the building. A good business development officer takes a holistic approach. They look at all the big picture, and they say, how can I solve the financial access to capital requirements for this business? So what we do in Franklin Brothers is we refinance some debt. They have a $250,000 working capital line that's been maxed out for years. The receivables are $750,000. And hopefully you learn is we have an increase in assets. There has to be a corresponding increase in either debt or equity. It has to balance. So if we increase our receivables from $500,000 to $700,000, it needs to offset something. We just can't increase it. It has to be an offset in equity. It has to be an offset in liability. Now, hopefully they make money off of that $200,000 AR, so half of it goes into equity, but it has to be offset by some sort of liability. So you're going to become proficient in structuring these loans. SBA mandates. We have enough working capital for 12 months to operate the business. I've said that's a trap. It's got to go 18 months. So I think you'll enjoy Franklin Brothers. It's a fun little case. You have exposure to it from last week. You'll be able to go into much more in depth. And next Friday, I am on a plane. So you want to try to do it Thursday? I tell you, we'll send out a little doodle request as we have for the three of you guys and gals, and we'll give you a couple different times. I have issues. I'm in Atlanta the following week. For weeks 4 and 5 office hours, it can't be at this time, but I will certainly make accommodations to cover the material. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming. Have a nice weekend. Talk to you next week.